beautiful people, we are here. I believe we streamed yesterday. Correct? We did, didn't we? We're trying to do these streams every other day. So the fact that we're here today is a little treat. I'm in the streaming mood tonight, so to speak, and we're going to talk about something very, very important. It's something that we've spoke about here before in the past. Most things that we cover here on the channel are not really new to you guys that have been here for a while, but they're important facts that we should always go over and try to be mindful of, especially during your recovery, right? So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to get into it. I was thinking about doing a stream earlier during the day, and I got wrapped up and I couldn't really get around to it. So I find myself with some free time tonight. So we're gonna knock out a stream. Anxiety recovery, the one fact that most won't accept. So there is a nice little fact here. As far as recovery is concerned, as far as anxiety is concerned, that a lot of people can't seem to accept and won't bring themselves to accept it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Go ahead and send out a few notifications really quick. Let's see. Got a lot of people joining in on the chat. How are you doing, Kay? Oh boy, what is up, Kay? What's up, Sanchez? Wonder Bro. Let's see, Sky, Life of Riley. What's up, guys? Mike, what's up? Give us a fire stream. I'm gonna do my best, man. I'm gonna do my best. So kind of a late stream tonight, but I think this time frame is normally okay for most people, so it should be all right. How is everybody doing? How you doing, Sky, Sanchez, Riley, Mike, everybody, Kate? How are you guys doing? All right, let's see here. Let's see here. All right. Chat's already starting to fill up pretty quickly. Shouldn't have to wait around too long. Also, before we get started, I am trying to do more things on other social media like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. I've been making a lot of TikToks lately. They're actually pretty fun to make. So if you guys want to follow me on all that other good stuff, make sure you do so. You can find me under Vacate Fear on pretty much anything and everything. So trying to branch out a little bit just so I can hopefully bring more people to the channel. So go follow me on that stuff. Check that stuff out. You might enjoy it. Yeah, bring the fire, dude. I am going to bring the fire. I am going to attempt to bring the fire. We'll see how it goes. So, don't want to wait around too long. We're already 3 minutes into this thing. Let's go ahead and get started on the point of tonight's stream. So tonight we're going to be talking about the one fact that most won't accept. And unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately, but at some point you're going to have to accept this if you want to make progress during your recovery, right? So we know what the two main keys are. You've got to live your life despite feeling anxious. Try to have those productive days. Do things you want to do, not what the anxiety wants you to do. And have that accepting attitude, right? So that is the two main keys right there. Instead of mentally fighting with your thoughts and feelings, try to have the accepting attitude instead and have those productive days. Live your life. You're not necessarily going to want to feel like doing that, but you need to in order to teach your brain that the danger does not exist. So everybody, that's here, that's been here for a while, is familiar with those two main keys. Now, here's the fact that we are referring to that you must accept if you are going to use those two main keys to their full potential. And that fact is anxiety learns. Now, a lot of you probably already know what I'm about to say. Anxiety learns while anxiety is turned on. Whew, that's a big one. Anxiety learns while anxiety is turned on. Now, here's the problem that I see with a lot of people. I see a lot of people making it, especially at first. They're willing to use the two main keys. I'm willing to have a productive day and do fun things and live my life. I am willing to have the accepting attitude to the best of my ability rather than mentally fighting with all of this. I'm willing to do that, Wonder Bro, unless unless life happens, unless I feel intense, unless I feel very anxious. Now, if I feel very anxious, Wonder Bro, then I'm not willing to use the two main keys, but I am willing to use them if I feel halfway decent. I am willing to use them if I feel a little bit of anxiety. I am willing to use them if life is going okay. I am willing to use them as long as I don't feel too bad. That that will never work. I don't know what else to say. That will never work. You will never make the amount of progress that you want to make. So you've got to understand something. Anxiety is going to learn the most, the absolute most, when you feel horrible. I'm talking near panic. I'm talking in a panic. I'm talking anxiety through the roof. That is when anxiety is going to learn the most, because you have direct access to those fear pathways in your noggin, in your brain, when anxiety is turned on, right? Right? So if you are falling victim to the mindset that you're willing to use the two main keys, I'm willing to have productive days, I'm willing to try to not fight with my thoughts and feelings and just give myself some accepting self-talk instead. I'm willing to do that, but only if anxiety is at a minimum. As soon as anxiety is intense, I am no longer willing to use the two keys. If that is a mindset that you are currently falling victim to, I must be blunt with you for a second, and you must realize that you will never make the amount of progress that you wish to make if that is your current mindset. I see it happen all the time. I'm willing to do the work if it's easy. I'm willing to do the work if my anxiety is minimum. I'm willing to do the work if I feel somewhat decent. I'm willing to do the work as long as I don't feel too intense. And as soon as it gets intense, the work goes out the window. It's back to bed, it's back to the couch, it's back to Reddit, it's back to Dr. Google, it's back to all of the bad habits, right? You must understand that when anxiety is intense, that is the absolute best time for you to be using the advice. That is the absolute best time for you to not hit the couch. That is the absolute best time for you to not go to your compulsions and your coping methods. So we see it happen way too often. People are willing to use the advice as long as it's not too intense. But as soon as it gets intense, they're no longer willing to use the advice. I'm going to go back to my bad habits. It's not going to work. You have to understand, right? You have to understand how the brain works. You have to understand how the limbic system works, the amygdala works, and I'm going to put it to you simply. It works like this. When those fear pathways are activated, aka when you feel like absolute garbage, that is when your brain is making the most notes out of what you are doing, how you're behaving, and if you're having that worry or not, if you're using the accepting attitude or not. So let me put it to you in an example, because we love examples around here. And keep in mind, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus with this. I'm trying to correct this so that you can make progress, because I want to see you make progress. So let me try to put it to you in the form of an example. Let's say you wake up one day and you have a really productive day because you feel pretty good. You're anxious, but you're not too anxious. So you wake up and you're like, okay, today I'm really going to make the most of this day. I feel halfway decent. Anxiety's there, right? But I'm going to use the two keys. So you get up, you have a productive day. You're doing things that you enjoy doing. You're doing your hobbies. You're having fun. You're doing that work that needs to be done. You're doing the housework. You're having just an all-around productive day. You're not using your compulsions and coping methods, even though you want to a little bit, right? You took advantage of a day where you felt halfway decent, and you used the two main keys, and that is awesome. That is excellent. Give yourself a pat on the back. Here's where the problem comes into play, however. The next day you wake up, or maybe next week, I don't know. You wake up and panic's there. You don't know why. I know why. Your nerves are sensitized. You wake up and panic's there. You wake up and you're triggered. You wake up and something bad happens in your life. You got some bad news. You wake up and things just aren't going ideally. You wake up and you don't feel up to it. You wake up and life is just not perfect for you right now. Something bad has happened, right? You are having a day where you are fully triggered. And then you say to yourself, Okay, well, I'll get back on track later. Today is not the day for me to be using the two main keys. I don't feel up to it. Life's just not going my way. I'm going to pick up those compulsions and bad habits again. I'm going to allow myself to basically, for lack of better words, and to be a little blunt, I'm going to allow myself to fuck up, right? No. I don't know how else to say it. No, I understand, guys. Believe me, I understand and I sympathize with you. Sometimes life doesn't go your way, and that sucks. Sometimes you don't feel up to using the advice, and that sucks. I get it. But you can't just use the advice when you feel up to it. You got to understand that your brain is going to benefit the most from this. And I'm not saying that your brain's not benefiting from it because you're using it on days where you feel halfway decent. Your brain is still benefiting. But your brain is going to benefit the most when this stuff is intense, dude. Your brain is going to benefit the most when you feel the most like garbage. Your brain is going to benefit the most when you're triggered more. So if you're falling victim to that, I'm only willing to use the advice, Wonder Bro, when I feel halfway decent. We got to get you to a point where you have a different perspective, a different mindset. Your mindset has got to go from I'm only willing to do this when I feel halfway decent to I'm willing to do this when I feel like garbage because I know that's when I'm going to benefit the most. If that's your perspective, then you're going to be more likely to do the work when you feel horrible. Right now, some of your perspectives are if I feel horrible, I need to take it easy. That just doesn't cut it, right? If I feel horrible, then I'm not up to it. I'll do it when I feel better. Your perspective needs to be, this is an opportunity, and I'm going to take full advantage of that opportunity. If you wake up feeling like garbage, I know it can be scary, and I know it can be intense, and I know sometimes it can be even terrifying. But if you've got the mindset of, I'm going to take advantage of this because I know that this is when my brain is learning the most, then maybe that's what it'll take to get you on track and motivated, even during the really tough days. Because again, I can't say it enough. That is when your brain is going to learn the most. So it is a good start to be willing to use the advice and practice the advice when you feel decent. But if you truly want to make progress, and I'm talking real progress, serious progress, you've got to be willing to use the advice even when you feel like absolute garbage, right? Because, again, you're going to get sick of hearing this, but it's so important. That is when the brain is going to learn the most. If you wait around for life to be perfect, if you wait around for all of your life situations to handle themselves, and then I'll get on track, it's never going to work because here's reality. Life is always going to be happening, and it's never going to be going perfectly. There's always going to be little things, right? I'm not saying you can't live a happy life, but there's always going to be things in life that upset you, right? There's always going to be little things that kind of happen here and there. You can't wait until life is perfect to say, then I'll dedicate, because that's just never going to happen. You can't wait until you feel ready to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate, because you're never going to feel, quote unquote, ready. You can't wait until you feel better to dedicate, because you're never going to feel 100% better, right? If you're going through recovery and not willing to use the advice, you're always going to have moments where you feel pretty intense. We need to take advantage of those moments, right? So you can't wait around until you feel perfect to dedicate. You can't wait around until you feel ready, because you're never going to really feel ready. You can't wait around until life is going perfectly fine, because life never really goes perfectly fine for any of us. There's always going to be those, few bumps in the road here and there. That's just life, man. You got to take the good with the bad with the good. You just can't wait. I mean, that's the main point that I'm trying to get at tonight. You can't wait to use the advice. You're never going to have the perfect conditions, right? So I applaud you if you've been practicing the two main keys when you feel up to it, but you must understand that if you're ready to level up and take it to the next level, you've got to be willing to practice the two main keys even when you don't feel up to it. Does everybody get what I'm saying? If you really want to take your recovery to the next level, we have to be using the advice when anxiety is full force, because that's when the brain is learning the most. So to be very straightforward and blunt about it, if you want to make the most progress that you can potentially make, and all of you have great potential, if you want to make the most progress that you can make, you have to switch your mindset and be willing to use the advice even when anxiety is at a freaking 10, right? You have to be willing to do it. So I applaud you for beginning, but if you want to make true progress, you've got to be willing to use the advice even when it's extremely intense. And I'm not saying that you're going to hit the ground running with that and be perfect at that. I understand that's a practice and that takes time, right? And you might have plenty of failures. along the way. I understand all of that. But you've got to be willing to at least try to use the advice, or at least practice using the advice while you're feeling intensely, right? I'm not saying you got to be perfect. I'm not saying you're going to be perfect, and I'm not saying you're not going to fail. But you've got to at least be willing to practice using the advice while you feel intense, because that is when the anxiety is going to learn the most. You can't halfway do this. There can't be, oh, I'm going to dedicate as long as I feel decent. But as soon as I don't feel decent and the anxiety is intense, I'm not even going to practice dedicating. I'm just going to go right off track, right? You've got to be willing to use the advice. And this is the last thing I'll say about it, and then I'll wrap up the point of the stream. You've got to be using the advice even when you don't feel like it. Because the fact that I'm referring to, for those of you who are late, the title of the stream is the one fact that most won't accept. That fact is this: anxiety learns the most while anxiety is turned on. You've got to accept that as a fact because it is true. So again, if you're late, the title of the stream is the one fact that most won't accept is that anxiety learns while anxiety is turned on. And eventually you've got to accept that, and you've got to realize that that is reality so that you can start taking advantage of when anxiety is turned on instead of seeing it as a bad thing, right? That was the point of today's stream, you beautiful, beautiful people. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. Thank you guys so much for coming out and watching the stream. We've got a pretty full chat tonight. I'm surprised because this is a bit of a late one. So I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come spend a bit of it with me. Thank you so much. Like I said, make sure you leave that thumbs up. We're going to put on some music. Sanchez has already recommended Miami Vice music. So let's do that tonight. Let's do that tonight, and then we'll catch up with chat, see what you guys are up to, and hang out for a bit. How you doing, Garza? Welcome to the stream, dude. We might have a quick ad that we got to sit through, yeah. Use the two main keys like your quality of life depends on it, because it kind of does. There you go. That's one way to put it. That's a blunt way to put it, and a very true way to put it. Oh, that was loud. Ooh, apologies. Hopefully that didn't jump scare anybody. Turn this down a little bit. All right, who else we got in chat? Just stop by to say hi. I have ups and downs, but still haven't had my first major setback. Maybe I never will. Maybe, yeah, maybe you never will. I consider myself recovered because I'm not trying to recover anymore. There you go. There you go. Let's see. After all, logic goes out the window with the mind. It does. Actions work. Logic does not. You can't convince your brain that it shouldn't be triggered using logic. If you could, none of you would be here right now, right? Because, for example, you could be triggered over, I don't know, some sort of intrusive thought, and then you could just tell yourself, you could tell your amygdala, oh, you don't have to worry about that because here's the research behind that, and then the amygdala says, oh, okay, boss, and that's the end of the story. If that was possible, none of you would be here right now. You cannot convince your amygdala that something is not a danger using logic. So not only is your obsession just hurting and frying your nerves, it's also serving no purpose whatsoever, right? Like you say, actions work. Logic never. So that is why the accepting attitude, instead of obsessing using logic, is part of the equation, and that is why positive behavior is the other part of the two main keys. For that reason right there. But, you know, the point of the stream is you got to be willing to do that even though you feel very intense. That is the point of the stream. So, let's see. While anxiety is turned on, hi there, anxiety. You're looking mighty fine today. There you go. Great ass, by the way. Yeah, there you go. That's one way to talk to your anxiety. Eventually, the feelings follow, recovery begins. Just live, period. Two keys. And live. Don't overcomplicate it. I know about that. The two keys are live. Live your life and have the accepting attitude because your logic's not going to work here anyway. That's one way to put it. Your logic's not going to work here anyway. And I'm going to keep repeating it probably throughout the entire stream. You got to be able to do this, and you got to be willing to at least practice doing this when you feel like absolute crap. Hi, Wonderbro question. When you understand anxiety, but it still comes, what's that about? Well, you can understand how it works all day long. You can understand that, okay, my logic doesn't work here. You can understand that, okay, positive behavior is the way to show the brain that the tiger doesn't exist. In fact, everybody here understands. Understanding isn't the issue. Anxiety is still going to come whether you understand it to a perfect degree or not, because you can understand something, but if you're not doing it, you're not doing it, right? You can understand something, but if you're running for the couch every time you're anxious, well, you're still going to just send the same messages to the brain. That comes back to the whole logic doesn't work here. Logically, you can understand how all of this works, and that's what I'm here to do, is to teach you guys that. But if you're not using it, if you're not using the positive behavior, if you're still using coping methods, compulsions, and negative behaviors, if you're still trying to use your logic to figure it all out instead of just having the accepting attitude, basically what I'm trying to say is if you're not using the advice, you can have all the logic in the world. It's not going to matter. It's not going to work. So, you know. And that, that applies to anything in life. You can understand something on an intellectual level, but if you're not doing the work that's required, then it doesn't matter how much you think you know. Right? It doesn't matter how much you think you know if you're not actually using the advice. So for example, if we got somebody who understands that, okay, when I'm triggered with an intrusive thought, there's no point in trying to figure it out mentally. I'm just going to accept it, and then I'm going to be productive. If we got someone who understands that, right, but isn't using that, it's not going to make a difference. Not going to make a difference. Kind of reminds me of my past self. I was very aware of the advice. I was very aware of how the mind and body functioned. I was very aware of the inner workings of the amygdala and the limbic system. However, I wasn't using any of that for a very long time. So, despite being an entire encyclopedia of anxiety knowledge, I never made any progress for a long time until I started to dedicate to it.
Donation.
First tip of the night, Pandemonium, $10 tip. Thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate it. Last time the power went out right after you read my donation message, but I decided to overcome my new donation phobia and try again. So held yourself responsible for my power outage there. Let's see. Give it a second. We're good. We're good. Come to find out, it wasn't your donation that killed my power. So congrats on overcoming your donation phobia. Thank you so much, dude. On a serious note, thank you so much for the $10 tip. I really appreciate you. We are on a 116-day streak, which is absolutely insane. Can't thank you enough for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Kate says 26 viewers, 6 likes. I'm calling all of you people out. Like the stream, please. Yes, I would really appreciate it. It only takes a second, and it does help the channel grow. I was like a car doing a massive burnout, got me going sideways. Yeah, I mean, fatigue, burnout, it's all very, very normal part of recovery. Even if you're using the 2 main keys, I think that's important to note that can be still very much a part of recovery, right? Burnout, fatigued, whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, it can go either way, so. Yes, thank you, Panda. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So we're gonna drop a link real quick, and if you guys are interested in joining up, if I can get it, it's being weird. Oh no, we've got an ad. Ignore that. You didn't hear that. I'll be flagged for that like crazy later. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff, man. $116-day streak, dude. That is absolutely insane. What's up, Savannah? How you doing? Everything started when I noticed I feel like crap more than usual one day after a very stressful period. I fell into that cycle that day by trying to fight the discomfort I felt. So a lot of this, well, I won't even say a lot of this, I'll say all of this, comes down to trying to fight the way that you feel, which ultimately is futile, but also very stressful. I think most people are able to accept the fact that it's futile. Like, I understand that by fighting with the way that I feel, I'm not going to get anywhere. Like, that's pretty easy to comprehend. But what a lot of people don't realize, and they eventually fall into the sensitized boat, is how stressful fighting the way that you feel is. So they will learn, though. They will learn. Once you fry those nerves enough, you eventually find your boy here, right? You eventually find your boy here, so... I've been able to calm my nerves enough that symptoms don't bother me when they come, but other areas of my life seem off. Well, of course, you're going to still have, you might get to the point where you're not adding as much second fear as Dr. Claire Weeks would call it. You might get to that point, right? But you say, I feel disconnected from outside things like my boyfriend, my family, my job. Could this just be a part of healing? Absolutely is a part of healing. Just because you get to the point that you're no longer adding as much second fear as you used to, doesn't mean that the symptoms are just going to fade. I mean, they will in time. Obviously, that's a part of healing. But my point is, let's say you start using the advice tremendously well, and you're perfect at it. And you don't have to be perfect, but this is just an example. You wake up every day, you're being productive, right? You're moving through the feelings rather than trying to fight or move against them. You're no longer mentally trying to fight with it all. You've got the accepting attitude. Let's say you do that and you're doing a great job at it. Just because you've gotten started with that doesn't mean you're going to feel every single symptom just disappear, right? So you might not be reacting to them with as much second fear as you used to, but that doesn't mean they're just going to disappear overnight. You're still going to feel things like you said, maybe a bit disconnected, right? It takes time for your brain to catch up with this. It takes time for these levels in your body to even out. This is very much a process. It does take time. Right? Now, I'm not saying it takes time to feel relief. Relief can come rather quickly if you really start using this advice. So I'm not saying it takes forever to feel relief, but it does take time for your brain to fully catch up and for all of these symptoms as a whole to kind of really fade out. So it does take time. The more you worry about the time, the worse off you'll be, though. I will mention that because worry is worry, regardless. Yeah, and that's okay too. It doesn't always have to start with a panic attack.
Donation.
Panda! Hey, Panda, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Panda, so much. Thank you. With the $10 tip says, love the streams always. Thank you for being you, dude. You help me so much. Much love. Thank you, Panda. I appreciate you. Thank you. Give our tippers a round of applause, please. Panda and Pandemonium. Thank you guys for the tips. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I've been getting a setback on my mind. Wants to suck me into the rabbit hole. Wants me to take me back my old thinking, over analyzing every thought. So anytime you have that intrusive thought pop up that says you're going to go back to the way you once was, right? Anytime you have an intrusive thought pop up, and it doesn't matter the context. Context is irrelevant because we treat it all the same. But in your example, you have an intrusive thought that says, oh, you might get a setback or something. To that, you want to respond to that with the opposite of what anxiety expects. Anxiety expects you to worry and then start using negative behavior. You're going to respond with the opposite. So the thought says you might have a setback. You're going to respond with the opposite, and you're going to say, okay. Right? Okay, fine. And some people who's not used to this or understands how this works might say, why would you say okay to that, Wonder Bro? Well, shouldn't you kind of try to fight that off with a stick, dude? Like, that's not okay. Right? But you got to understand, if anxiety gets you to worry, then it's accomplishing its mission. So you need to respond with what the opposite of what anxiety expects. We call that the accepting attitude. So when you get a thought that says you might have a setback, you respond with the accepting attitude. Anxiety doesn't expect that. You respond with the accepting attitude and you say, okay, fine. Right? And then you go make the bed. Then you go take the dog out, whatever. You have a productive day. So it's always about responding with the opposite of what anxiety expects. Anxiety expects obsession. You respond with the opposite of that, right? That's what we call the accepting attitude portion of the two main keys. And then you live your life. You have a productive day. That's the living your life portion of the two main keys. Now, these two things together is a perfect recipe for teaching the brain that the danger doesn't exist. The positive behavior, aka living your life, tells the brain, hey, look, I'm no longer hiding from a tiger, right? So there's that portion of teaching the brain. The other portion, the accepting attitude, keeps you out of the worry and obsession, which is just going to set the nerves off. So when you put these two things together, bada bing, bada boom. Absolutely perfection. Couldn't get any better than that. Here's the kicker, though. You've got to actually use it. You've got to actually do it. And I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world, because it is not. I'm not saying you don't have to, that you have to be perfect, because you do not, right? But I am saying you do have to make an effort, and you have to make a pretty damn good one, right? It takes some effort. So you're capable, man. Every person in here is capable. You just, you've got to make that effort. So if you're here now and you've never heard this advice before, well, now you know why it works. Now you know why the two main keys are what they are. Now you know how the brain learns. You've got the information. You literally have no excuses. At this point, you literally have no excuses. You won't be perfect, but that's okay. That's okay. My first experience with anxiety was in primary school year 3. I was playing a part in a school play and got nervous speaking in front of others. The reason my fear response was so strong is because I used to get beaten and belittled by my parents. So no matter what your past says, right? I'm the person I am today because of my past. Well, that might be true. You might have been through things that kind of shaped who you are today, and that's fine. But guess what? Regardless of what shaped the person that you are today, nothing has yet to determine what you're going to be tomorrow. That's up to you. That part's up to you. So everybody, not just you in the chat, Sky, but everybody is the person that the person who they are today is a result of the choices and the actions and even the things that they've been through in the past. But in this moment, nothing determines the person that you've got to be tomorrow but you. Right? So you can change how things are going for you. You can change your behavior. You can change the way you carry yourself. You can make changes to your choices, habits, and decisions. Not easy, but worth it. So yes, a lot of who you are today has to do with the way that you behaved in the past. But knowing that, you can apply that to the so-called future too. The person that you're going to be tomorrow is a result of how you behave today, right? And that never changes. That never changes. So if you're not happy with the person that you are today, and this is just good life advice, I'm speaking to all of you, not just anxiety. This is good life advice. If you're not happy with the person that you are today, understand that that is the result of the way that you have carried and behaved in the past, the way that you have carried yourself, right? Knowing that, you can apply that to the so-called future. If you want to be someone different, if you want to do something different, the choices that you make today are going to determine your tomorrow. So it's up to you, and I'll be straight with you. That's not easy, dude. It's not easy. It's not, right? But it's worth it, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters. It's not easy, but it's worth it. You might have some tough decisions to make, but it's worth it. You might want to go to bed and use coping methods tonight, but you want to be a better person tomorrow than you are today. Therefore, it's worth not using those coping methods. You might have to make a tough, scary decision today, but it's worth the person that you're becoming. It's all worth it. It doesn't have to be easy as long as it's worth it, right? Right? So, for an example, someone says, I'm 33 and still trying to quiet my father's voice in my head. So, let's say you grew up and you were always kind of belittled by your parents, or you were frightened by your parents, and that kind of shaped you into being a soft-spoken, shy person. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong necessarily with being soft-spoken, but let's say you were shaped into this person that's very soft-spoken and shy. I don't like to assert myself. You're not assertive, right? Because of the way that you've been treated in the past. Well, you've been shaped into this person. Now, if you want to become a more assertive person, you can't just have the desire to become a more assertive person and that be enough. You're going to have to take the actions that are in line with being a more assertive person if you want to become an assertive person. That's where it gets a little tough, because you're going to have to do things outside of your comfort zone, right? But you can shape the person that you become depending on your actions. So if you're not an assertive person because your parents frightened you growing up, right? That's fine. You want to become an assertive person, you got to do more than just wish for it. You got to make actions and choices that are in line with what an assertive person would do. Okay? Feeling follows action, not the other way around. You got to take the action. I was doing good for a few weeks, and now I'm feeling that impending doom feeling again. It's scary, but when I was doing good, I forgot how it felt. That's great. Let it come back. What defines a setback is whether or not you purposely are using negative behaviors and going against the advice and putting yourself in that position. But if the anxiety just come back on its own, that means you've just got some pathways to rewrite. And the whole point of tonight's stream was that anxiety learns the most while anxiety is turned on. You need to change your mindset and take advantage of feeling these symptoms, because that is when your brain is going to learn the most. So that is absolutely fine and not a problem. And you should see it, you should see it that way, as absolutely fine and not a problem, because this is when your brain is learning the most. Obviously, you've got some pathways that still need to be retrained, and they've decided to pop off now. That's fine. That's fine. Take advantage of it, man. The whole point of tonight's stream was that you got to be willing to use the two main keys even when you don't feel like doing it, right? Even when you feel awful, even when you feel bad. All right, guys, I will be back in just like 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. Enjoy the BRB music. I know you all love it, so enjoy it, and I will be right back. Hello, I have returned. So Garza, man, coming in with the $20 tip while I was away there for a second. Says, thanks Wonder Bro for all that you do. Even though I'm going through the storm, I've been focusing on these two keys and it feels as if I'm getting used to it or getting better at it. Excellent. Has been really hard. It will be difficult. Like I said, none of this is necessarily easy. Changing behavior, becoming the person you want to be, it all takes action that is, contrary to what you're used to doing, and that is uncomfortable. That is different. That is change. None of this is necessarily easy, but it's worth it, and as long as it's worth it, that's all that matters. So thank you so much again, dude, for the $20 tip. Shout out in the chat to my boy Garza. I appreciate you, dude. That puts us at 40. Yes, at 40. We are on a 116-day streak, 10 away from moving on to 117. Thank you guys so much for your tips. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Love you all. I'm out. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Just appreciate it. Appreciate it. I think I said just there, but it's because I was about to read your above comment. Just stop resisting it. Let it win. It goes away. Craziest thing I know. So yeah, I mean, it's all about allowing it. Resistance obviously is going to be the main culprit to your suffering here. As long as you are resisting the way that you feel, then it's going to change your behavior. If you're in resistance to something, right? If you're in resistance to anxiety, then that's going to affect your behavior, and your behavior is going to continue to send the wrong message. So first we try to drop resistance with what we call the accepting attitude, rather than mentally trying to fight with your thoughts and feelings, and then follows the positive behavior. These two things together, perfect recipe for healing. But again, even though we've said it 100 times tonight, I'm going to keep hammering it into your brains. You have to be willing to do this even when you feel like garbage. Just remember that it is worth it, and remember what you're in it for. You want a new life, you're going to have to work for it. You want to be a new person, you're going to have to shape that new person. You want to, improve the quality of your life, or like I said, become a new person. This is all something that you're going to have to work for, and that is going to require you to make different decisions, and even sometimes very tough decisions that goes against everything that you're used to doing. So in the example we gave earlier, we said that if somebody was mistreated growing up and that made them into a non-assertive person, if they are aware of that and they want to become an assertive person, that is going to require you to raise your voice. That is going to require you to keep your chin up during social gatherings. That is going to require you to speak up and give your opinion even when you feel scared to do so. That is going to require you to be a part of situations and to behave in a way that is in line with what an assertive person would be doing, even though you currently do not feel like an assertive person. Right? So really what this all comes down to, anxiety, recovering from anxiety, teaching your brain that the danger is not real. Becoming a more assertive person, being, even not just anxiety, but becoming anything you want to become with your life and how your brain operates. It's all going to require you to make different choices that are in line with who you want to become, which is going to require discomfort. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. You take a really shy person who wants to be a social butterfly, well, that's going to require them to put themselves in social situations and raise their voice even though it shakes. Do you see what we're getting at? You take an anxious person whose brain thinks they're in danger, 24 hours a day because their nerves are sensitized and they've taught their brain with their behaviors that there is a danger. You take a person like that and they want to become a person who feels better. That's going to require them to do things that somebody not in danger would be doing, which for them is going to be very uncomfortable because they're going to have to cut coping methods. They're going to have to cut compulsions. It's not going to be easy, right? So you see how at the end of the day, this all comes back to the same thing. This is all going to require you to make different choices that are in line with who you want to become, which is not easy, but it's very worth it. What GPU do you got, and is it OC or not? I have the, what do I have? The RX, hold on. That is a good question, Ghost. That is a very good question. The 580, I believe. I want to say the 580. So it's nothing insane. It's nothing crazy. I definitely don't have like the 3080 or anything like that. But it's a decent GPU. It's decent. It plays everything that I want it to play. Not necessarily in 4K on ultra settings, but it plays most things on ultra or high in slightly lower resolutions. So I'm not complaining. What triggers a setback after so long of not having anxiety? Probably going back to bad habits. Some people go back to bad habits because they feel like they can get away from it. Well, again, old habits die hard, so you could be at a point where you haven't experienced anxiety in a while, but if you go back to the same things that put you there to begin with, it's kind of like a what do you expect type of situation. So if you really want to make this stuff concrete, it takes time. You can be anxiety free for a while, but you should still be using these skills. This is good life advice, not just good anxiety advice. Everything that we talk about with the 2 main keys should be applied to life, right? Not just anxiety. So if you've got someone who's pretty much over most of their symptoms, but then they go back to bad habits for some reason, probably not a good thing. Notifications has really changed. We have just been tricked by sensitization. When it lifts, so does all the silly symptoms we take so seriously. So I think what you're trying to say there is that, yes, your anxiety is excellent at making you think something is a huge problem when it's actually not, right? That's what we call a false alarm. Now, you got to be willing to face that false alarm and change your behavior in the face of that false alarm if you want your brain to catch up. How do you teach it? Not figuring out or adding to the what ifs. Yeah, exactly. So we don't try to figure out or add to the what ifs because logic doesn't work with anxiety. So you're wasting your time anyway. Plus, you're stressing your nerves out the more worry you do. So you don't try to figure it out. You just accept it as a false alarm. That is half of the equation. And then you let the feelings be. Live your life. Right? We got to mention that too. Live your life. That positive behavior is good for the brain to see. It loves to see it. You got to think of it like a caveman, dude. Anxiety was very beneficial for the cave people. Right? The cave people, the cave women and the cave men were in their little stone caves, and they had to fight off tigers, and their life was constantly in danger. Anxiety served them well because it got them up and moving. We still have anxiety built into us into this day. And how does anxiety learn? It learns the same way it did back in the cave women and cavemen days. If it sees you pacing the house because you're anxious, it's going to assume that you're doing that because there is a tiger chasing you. If it sees you laying in bed all day, it's going to assume you're doing that because you're trying to hide from the tiger. Do you see what we're getting at? Do you see what we're getting at? So we're no longer cavemen and cavewomen. However, the brain and anxiety, as far as anxiety is concerned, still learns in the same way. It doesn't know that we're sitting here with cell phones and Xboxes and PlayStations and automobiles and houses and air conditioning. It doesn't know any of that. It's still very much back in the caveman days. And you're acting like a caveman, right? You're acting like a caveman or a cavewoman. It's going to assume that there must be a saber-toothed tiger, right? It doesn't know that you're just sitting there on your phone on Instagram and freaking yourself out mentally, fighting with your thoughts and feelings, and hiding on the couch. It just assumes that you're hiding from a tiger, not that you're just sitting there on Instagram, scrolling Instagram. So you kind of see how that works there. People don't think of it like that, but you need to. You need to. It would be nice if the brain was just brilliant and smart in that way and said, oh, I see no tiger, must not be no tiger. But it's not smart and brilliant in that way. In fact, it's very dumb in that way. If it sees you pacing around the house, it says tiger, danger. I gave this person an alarm and they got up and started pacing. Well, that means I got them out of harm's way, so I'm going to keep doing my job, right? But instead of getting up and pacing around, you just relaxed, did the opposite of what anxiety wants you to do, whatever the situation may be. Then the brain's going to say, oh, I guess my false alarm was not needed. Okay, got it. I'm going to make a note of that. And then you got to repeat that because it does take a while for the brain to truly learn. So does everybody see what I'm getting at there? Does everybody understand the message there? Wonder Bro, why do our bodies eventually desensitize even if we don't accept 100%? I always found that to be true. So here's the thing. I went through several bouts of sensitization, and during those first few bouts, I did not know about acceptance. Eventually, I desensitized. The ironic part of that is, and by the way, that doesn't happen for everybody. It might taper off. It might taper off, right? On its own and might not be as strong, but the way that I was able to eventually heal, even though I didn't know about acceptance the first two times around, is that eventually after a while you stop fighting as much as you realize that you're fighting. So you might not realize it, but after a while, even if you don't know about acceptance, if you've never watched the YouTube channel before, you could be out there and you could get so sick of the fighting with it, you eventually just accept it and don't even realize that you're accepting it. You might still be fighting, but not as strongly as you once was, and because of that, you start to give little breaks to your nerves that you don't even realize that you're giving, and you start to feel a bit better. Now, here's the main issue with that. If you heal that way, great. But 9 times out of 10, if you heal that way, you go back to the bad habits eventually, which is what I did the first 2 times around. I went right back to the bad habits eventually. I went back into full-blown fight mode eventually, and I resensitized again. So, right, that is a pretty big problem with healing that way. Unfortunately, most people who heal that way go back to the bad habits. So, not good. Not good, but that's normally why that happens. Yeah, people don't even realize it, but they stop fighting as much, and eventually they start to heal. But yeah, they more than likely will go back into being sensitized because they'll pick back up the bad habits again the next time they feel cruddy. So. We got the Miami Vice rolled out just for my boy Sanchez. That was the case for me anyway, Riley. I just, the first two times I went through it real bad with sensitization. Don't get me wrong, I was always a very anxious person, but those really strong bouts of sensitization, that's kind of how it happened to me. I just got to the point where I was kind of forced to keep living a little bit, and I stopped fighting as much. Didn't even know what I was doing. Healed, as a result, and just picked back up the bad habits again eventually, though, and went down the same path. So it's important that you learn the advice. I'm gonna enjoy this taco, then shut the fuck up. There you go. There you go. Like a broken leg, stay off it until the body heals. Exactly. Stop trying to figure it out, man. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to figure out. Your logic's not gonna cut it. Just stop trying to figure it out. Accept it for what it is and live your life. That's really what it comes down to. That's what it'll always come down to. I'm glad everyone's enjoying the stream tonight, though. I wasn't really sure how the turnout would be because we are kind of late. So I'm glad it turned out to be okay anyway, though. That is awesome. We're kind of on a schedule of streaming every other day right now, but that doesn't mean that every now and then we won't sneak in here and do a back-to-back stream sort of deal. It'll still happen from time to time. It'll still happen. How do you handle the physical symptoms like our tummy being upset or sweating? I know how to calm my breathing when panicking, but I can't seem to control any of the other physical symptoms. So it's not really a matter of control. That's really the whole thing about acceptance. Dr. Claire Weeks, the pioneer of acceptance, she'll tell you in her books that this is not a matter of control. And the more that you try to control, for example, the sweating, so you're hyper-focused on the sweating and you're thinking to yourself, I must make this stop. Here's the reality behind the situation, though. It's really out of your control. There's really no such thing as being able to make the upset stomach, for example, or the sweating stop. That's not really something that you get to control. That's not really something that you get to choose. However, when you do think that somehow you can control it, which you can't, you get yourself really worked up because now you're in a mindset of, I got to make this stop. How do I make this stop? You can't make it stop, but you're going to try to. And during that process, you're going to be very obsessed, worried, and ultimately behaving very negatively with your behaviors, which is going to send the wrong message to the brain. The brain's going to say, okay, there must be a real danger then because of how you're behaving and the way you're worrying. So with acceptance, we come to a point that we realize we don't really have control over things like the sweating or the upset stomach. We accept that we don't have the control over it, and we allow it to play out without doing as much of the worrying because we know that it's futile, and while continuing to have that positive behavior as opposed to the negative behavior. This is going to tell the brain indirectly that, hey, there's no danger here, okay? So you're paving the way for your nerves to become more comfortable, to become more healed, and for the brain to understand that you're not in any real danger. As a result of that, the symptoms will take care of themselves. Does that make sense? So as a result of the two keys, what we call them, which is the accepting attitude, stop trying to mentally fight your way out of this, and living your life. As a result of the two keys, these symptoms will take care of themselves. That's the ironic thing here. You can't control the symptoms, but you can use the two keys, and as a result, the symptoms will take care of themselves. So that's really what it's all about. It's really what it's all about at the end of the day. If you ask anybody here, myself included, what is their biggest personality flaw, if they're honest with themselves, they're going to tell you it's that they're a control freak, which is the simple truth. The simple truth is that I ended up where I ended up because I was a control freak, and everybody here ended up where they ended up because they're a control freak. So that's what it comes down to. That's ultimately what it comes down to. You are keeping your nerves very stressed, very tired, and sending the wrong message to your brain, right? Sending the wrong message to your brain. A shorter explanation is just allow it. It'll eventually pass on its own. There you go, Kate. There you go. There's your shorter explanation. If you're not in the mood to hear me ramble, Kate has got your back. Shorter explanation is to allow it and understand that it will pass on its own, that there's nothing you need to do, and the more you try to do something, the more worked up you're just going to become, right? Very futile and stressful. Kate's got me on that one, right? You don't want to hear my big mouth? Just ask Kate. She's got you. See, I didn't miss any comments, did I? We're all caught up. We're all good. All caught up. All good. Yeah, Panda says it well too. Just don't get involved mentally. Do you have any coping ideas? So we don't necessarily use the term coping, and I'll tell you why we don't necessarily use the term coping. It's because coping implies that you're not accepting. So we don't really use the term a whole lot. You know, with Dr. Clay Weeks and the acceptance method, it's all going to come down to acceptance. And that term just really puts people, I guess, in the wrong mindset. So we replace coping with accepting. So do you have any accepting ideas, right? Do you have any accepting ideas? So when it comes to acceptance and what you should be doing while you're accepting the thoughts, the symptoms, and everything that comes along with that, the ideas are as simple as doing things that you would do had you not, have you not been feeling the way that you're feeling. So you're anxious and you need to prove to your brain that there is no real danger. What's some accepting ideas? To do things that you would normally do, right? So you don't need to change your behavior for the anxiety. And that's really all you need to know when it comes to, hey, what should I be doing when I'm anxious? What would you normally be doing if you weren't anxious? And then do that thing, because that's what's going to tell the brain more than anything, hey, look at them, there must not be a real danger. Right? So there you go. I'd go a step further and act positively, joke about it, and be like, them damn tacos. There you go. There you go. I mean, that's what it's all about. So really, at the end of the day, it comes down to this, guys. There's nothing you can do when the amygdala and the limbic system, as a team, has declared that there is a danger. Now, there's not logically a danger, but there's nothing you can do when the amygdala has declared that there's a danger and then decides to trigger you. It has declared that the fire is there, has triggered you as a result, and there's nothing you can do to stop that process, so to speak. However, indirectly, if you use acceptance and just allow it for what it is, a false alarm, and carry on as normal, then the alarm will eventually shut off. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. There's nothing you need to figure out mentally. There is nothing you need to do physically. It comes down to there is nothing I need to do, carry on as normal, and the false alarm will eventually go away. Now, if I start trying to do something about it, I'm going to tell my brain by my obsession and worry and negative behavior, like coping methods or compulsions, that the alarm is justified. And that's not what I want to tell my brain. I do not want to tell my brain the alarm is justified, because it's not justified. So when Dr. Claire Weeks understood acceptance, she understood that you need to just let the false alarm pass, carry on as normal. There's nothing you need to do about it mentally or physically, right? There's nothing you need to do about it mentally or physically. And she understood that, and she became the pioneer of acceptance, and has since, her books have helped so many people, which is what we talk about here, acceptance. And I kind of put it in a more modern way. I put my own spin on it, but it's really all going to come down to that at the end of the day. There's nothing you need to do about it, and the more you try to do something about it, the more you get worked up. Didn't even cross my mind. So, partaking in your hobbies, I love it. Partaking in your hobbies, I love it. How are you doing, Sky? Declared. There you go. There you go. Perfect. I overcomplicated this so much in the past. You did. I'll admit it. But most people do, and that's okay. That's why That's why it's called practice. That's why it's called learning. I still have moments of asking questions and trying to make sure I'm on the right track, etc. And everyone is very understanding about it. Very understanding. I try to always be understanding. But it does. There does come a point where you have to simplify it, or else you risk always overcomplicating it, which is just not needed. So, and you've been doing better at that. You really have. You've been doing better at simplifying it. You've been making a lot of progress on that, Panda. A lot of progress, and you should be proud of yourself.
Donation.
Jen with the $10 tip. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jen, for the $10 tip. Says, thanks for all you do. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. That takes us to 50, which takes us to 117-day streak. We are moving on with the streak. Can we take a moment just to spam the chat with the emojis, show our love to all of our tippers tonight and every day that has helped get us to 117 days. That is just crazy. It takes a moment for me to really internalize that, but when I do, I'm like, holy shit, 117 days? That is insane. So let's give a big round of applause to all of our tippers in chat for getting us this far. I really appreciate it, and your support means the absolute world to me. You have no idea. So thank you so much. Man, if clouds did rain money, that would be nice. But clouds do rain money here, and it's all thanks to you guys. So I appreciate it. Making it rain with the cloud. Thank you so much. 117-day streak. I appreciate you. Take a moment to spam the chat. Let's get a wall of emojis going. Show our tippers some love, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kate. Hope you like my satire, Wonder Bro. I love your satire, dude. I don't know what I would do without your dad jokes, Sky. I really don't know what I would do without your dad jokes. We need comedic relief here, and you are that relief. So thank you. But Wonder Bro, it's very difficult to move forward and act regularly when your body thinks there is a tiger in front of the cave. It's not like you can talk yourself out of it. It's hard to even smile. Definitely is. I cannot disagree with you. In fact, I won't disagree with you. It is hard. I have never and will never say that it's not hard, but it's worth it. And that's the point that we were making earlier. It definitely is hard to go against evolution. You guys understand that's essentially what you're doing? When you are not reacting physically, when you are just continuing on regularly, as Mindy called it, to the false alarm, do you understand that at the end of the day, you are going against evolution as a whole? Now, does that sound like it's supposed to be easy? No. So it's definitely not. And I can't disagree with you in any way, shape, or form there. It's definitely not easy. But I'll tell you this, it's worth it. And when you think about it, and you do now understand how the mind and body works, and you understand why the two main keys work, you understand all of that on an intellectual level. So it's not a matter of understanding it. You do understand it. Now we get to the point where it's just hard to do. And that's why I use the word practice so much, because I don't expect you to be perfect. And that's why I also say you need to keep in mind what you're in it for. You're in it for a new life. You're in it to feel better. You're in it because you want your life back from anxiety, right? So I cannot disagree with you. Yes, it can be hard, right? Sometimes harder than others. But you got to understand, you are going against all of evolution, right? And that's not supposed to be easy. But I will say this. You're allowed to mess up. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to not be perfect. And you must understand that it is worth it. If you stay driven, if you stay motivated, and you understand that, yes, it's hard, but it's worth it, you will make it. You will make it. Stay dedicated. Stay driven. Stay motivated. Anything that's hard in life is usually worth it in the end. And I can tell you, I can vouch for the fact, and anybody else here in chat who's made significant progress, which there is a lot of them. A lot of people have healed here or made significant progress. They can vouch for it too when we say it is absolutely worth it. Easy? Never. Worth it? Absolutely. It will get easier. It will get easier. But I understand that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It might be hard to even smile. You might have to make yourself do this, but it's worth it. It's worth it. It is worth it. So thank you for that comment, Mindy. That is always a good point to sort of address. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way, so it's good to encourage people. If you were to eat a clown, would they taste funny? Man, I can't with you. I can't with you, Stud Muffin. Some people who's not been here before, probably like, who the hell is Stud Muffin? That is Sky in the chat. We call him Stud Muffin. He is a Stud Muffin. The resistance to our symptoms is what fuels the fire of anxiety. Oh, sorry, I'm burpy. Once we lose the quote-unquote fear and go towards then, they lessen, and over time the fear response shuts off completely. Facts. It is facts. It is facts, and just like Mindy said, it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You got to make yourself do it, man. It just comes to a point where you're like, I want this. I want this so bad that I'm willing to make myself do it, even though it's very difficult. So once your desire for it outweighs your, I can't do it, I won't do it, it's too hard. Once your desire for it outweighs that, which it will, if it hasn't already, you'll have that moment where you're like, man, I got to do this. And hopefully we can get you dedicated to it. Doesn't mean you won't fall off every now and then. You probably will. That's okay. We'll get right back to it. Get right back to it. Man, you jokes. You got jokes. You got jokes. Thank you, Bro. Thank you for taking the time to answer my question so in depth. Absolutely. I try to be thorough. I normally donate to you, but unfortunately I can't tonight. That's no problem whatsoever. I will make it up to you soon in a few days. You're not obligated. You're never obligated, right? I try to answer everybody's question as thoroughly as I can. Because you're correct. You're absolutely correct. It's not necessarily easy, and I can't disagree with that. But yeah, you are welcome, and do not feel obligated. Do not feel obligated to do that. I appreciate it, though. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, guys. We are over that 1 hour mark, so we're going to go ahead and start winding it down here. We're going to get our song ready to go. Everybody loves our song. It's so catchy. We're going to get that pulled up real quick. But thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. Great stream. Excellent questions. Make sure you leave a big thumbs up. Toss the stream a like if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, here's your sign to do so. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 10.5K. We recently just started Twitter and already over 1,000 followers. Really appreciate that. I believe that's all I've got to say. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love you. I love you more than you'll ever realize. And until next time, where's our song? There it is. We got it. Until next time, guys, as always, stay awesome.
I'm a stone cold killer. I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If I wasn't this way, I'd rather die. Did it die? Yeah. Did it die? Did it die? I'm a stone cold killer. I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If I wasn't this way, I'd rather die. Did it die? Wait. Did it die? Wait. Did it die?
Whatever you want, I'll be whatever you want. Just tell me you love me or not, whatever it costs. I know I'm talking a lot, there's something I gotta get off. Don't wanna be this no more, I don't wanna drink no more. Always gotta do the most, thinking that I'm insecure. Really should've listened more, but I don't, of course. I'm an asshole, I'm a good guy, I'm your best friend, I'm the worst type. Tell you everything that you heard, right? Just so I can fuck on the first night. Feel like I'm losing hope, running from coast to coast. I don't know where to go, this all I've ever known.
I'm a stone cold killer, I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If it wasn't this way, I'd rather die.
No,
Did it die?
wait,
Did it die?
wait.
Did it die? I'm a stone cold killer, I'm a billionaire. I got my own gold digger. If it wasn't this way, I'd rather die.
Won't die,
Did it die?
wait,
Did it die?
wait.
Did it die?
My aunt think I'm perfect, I know I'm not. My mama be worried, I told her stop. They know I did drugs and think that I'm off. Little do they know I never could stop. My manager hate when I'm pulling up late. Back on my bullshit, she think it's a phase. I got relations I gotta maintain. I'm two different people, my side and my main. Yeah, I'm sober, I'm an addict. I'm a lowlife, I got habits, but I refuse to be average. Really so tired of acting. Don't know what I miss no more. Too bad you don't hit me more. I'm bad when I get too bored. Careful what you wishing for.
I'm a stone